And that explosion caused the well-ordered universe that we see around us. The problem with that is that you and I both know exactly what happens when things explode, and it's not orderly universes. Let me explain. Suppose a 16-year-old, now this is really hypothetical. You're going to have to really work with me. You're going to have to stretch your minds on this one. This is very, very difficult to imagine, but being the intelligent individuals that I can see that you are, I think that you'll be able to do this. Work with me. Suppose that you had a 16-year-old boy whose room was messy. Now, like I said, it's going to be a stretch. I know that just really doesn't happen, but let's just act like it did. And you had a 16-year-old boy and his room was really, really messy, and he said, "Mom, I want to go to the movies tonight." And the mom said, "Well, what movie is it?" And it was a decent movie that he could go to. She said, all right, that sounds all right, as long as you clean your room. Because it looked like an F5 tornado hit it, and I need it straightened up some. He said, "All right, Mom, sounds great." She said, "What time's the movie?" He said, "It's at 6 o'clock. Great. Get your room cleaned up. You're more than welcome to go." 5:30 rolls around. Mom goes up, looks in the room. There's a mess. Clothes everywhere, gadgets and gizmos all over. One shoe here, another shoe here, baseball mitt, racket here, all kinds of stuff. She goes down. She finds her son. She says, "You're obviously not going to the movies." He said, "Oh, I'm planning to." She said, "What about your room? I thought we had a deal." He said, "I've got it." 5:45 rolls around. She goes up. She opens the door. Room is still a mess. Hadn't touched it. She goes down. She said, "You are not going to the movie." He said, "Mom, I've got it under control." She said, "I have seen your room and I know how long it takes to clean something. You are not leaving this house until your room is totally clean." And he says, "Mom, I got it." Kisses her on the forehead. He waits 10 more minutes. It's 5 till 6. He walks upstairs. Goes into his room, shoves everything in his room in one pile in the middle of his room, pulls out a stick of dynamite, sticks it under it, lights it, and walks out. Blows his room to pieces. Of course, the mom hears the explosion. She rushes up the steps. She slings open the door. She looks in, and what does she see? What does she see? Oh, you know what she sees. All the clothes that needed folding have been folded. In the explosion, the drawers slid out and the clothes catapulted themselves into the drawers exactly like they're supposed to be. All the clothes that needed hanging are hung. In fact, they're in color coordinated order now. The shoes are put together in their pairs. Is that what she sees? You know better than that. Suppose I had a computer. I took a sledgehammer to it, smashed it into 1,027 pieces, and stuck it in a metal box and stuck a stick of dynamite in there. How many times would I have to blow that box of computer pieces up to get a computer? I guess it wouldn't matter how many times because you're never getting a computer from an explosion. Do you know what you and I both understand? Explosions do not cause order. They never have. In fact, a man that I debated in 2009, Dan Barker, was debating another man by the name of Phil Fernandez. Fernandez asked him a simple question. He said, "Please give me one example of an explosion that's ever caused order that you've ever seen." Barker was taken aback a minute, and then he said, "Okay, I've got an example of one. My car." He said, "When I pump gas into my car, that gasoline goes into the cylinder, the spark plug lights it, it causes an explosion, and that explosion brings about me getting to the grocery store to buy milk." Phil Fernandez said, "Thank you for giving us an excellent example of intelligence designing something that can bring you order. Was that car engine designed, or did it come to existence from blind chance processes?" Well, of course, you well know. The car engine was designed. Dan Barker has been in over 75 debates now. He's one of the atheistic community's leading debaters, and he couldn't think of a single example in which an explosion could bring you any type of order, because there's not one. I'm sure he has recapped that question over and over and over and over in his head, and I've never seen an example of an explosion causing order. You've never seen one either. And let me tell you the kind of order that you've got to get for our universe. If you could blow up a computer from 1,027 pieces into an actual working computer, you would not have touched the hem of the universe's orderly garment. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Our universe is so well put together that even the atheistic physicists say that it is balanced on a razor's edge. Meaning that if you adjusted stuff by the tiniest degree, the universe that we have would not exist. life as we know it could not exist. In fact, the atheistic community has come up with something called the Goldilocks principle. You know Goldilocks, don't you? Goldilocks and the three bears, Daddy bear, Mama bear, baby bear. They sit down to their porridge, and just as an aside, I've never seen porridge. I've heard a lot about porridge. I've just never seen a bowl of porridge. When I do, it's going to make sense to me, I think. But anyway, they're sitting down to their bowl of porridge, and Daddy Bear's porridge is just too hot, and all the porridge is too hot, so they decide to go on a walk. Goldilocks comes in. Papa Bear's porridge is too hot. Mama Bear's porridge is too cold. Baby Bear's porridge? Just right, wasn't it? She goes to the living room. She tries Daddy Bear's chair. It's too tough. Mama Bear's chair is too soft. Baby Bear's chair? Just right, isn't it? Goes up to the bed, same situation. The Goldilocks principle. The atheists don't really have an explanation for it, but here's what they say. You know what? We don't know why this is the case, but it looks like this universe is just exactly right for humans to live here. We don't know why, but it looks like that's the case, and so we are in what they call the Goldilocks zone, because there's only a tiny little zone where life could exist, and we happen to be in the perfect place for life to be here. The Goldilocks zone we're in. In fact, if you were to start looking at some of the constants that are so closely connected that if you adjusted them, you would see that the Earth goes around the Sun in a very slightly elliptical orbit. Good thing it's a very slightly elliptical orbit. To the naked eye, it would look almost just like a circle. Except it's not quite a circle, it's tiny elliptical. It departs, the Earth does, going around the Sun, from a straight line by 1/9 of an inch every 18 miles. 1/9 of an inch, a tiny fraction every 18 miles. Now you say, you know what, it's been getting a little warmer lately. In fact, I'd like it to cool off a little. I'd like the Earth to be a little bit farther away from the Sun. So I'm okay. Well, instead of 1/9 of an inch, let's say it departed from a straight line by 1/10 of an inch. Just a tiny fraction less. You understand what I'm saying there? When it goes in a line, it curves in 1/9 of an inch just slightly. We say, well, we don't want quite 1/9. We want a little less than that. We want 1/10. All right, change it just a tiny fraction. Do you know that 2 times a year, right now, the Earth averages 93 million miles away from the Sun, but if you change it from 1/9 of an inch every 18 miles to 1/10 of an inch every 18 miles, twice a year we're going to get so far away from the Sun that we're going to hit such sub-zero temperatures that life as we know it's going to be gone. You say, just by changing a tiny fraction? Yeah. You say, well, we didn't want to cool it down that much. No, we certainly didn't we? In fact, we could use a little more warmth. Let's say you like a tropical, subtropical environment. You think it would be all right if the whole Earth was all kind of like the Caribbean? Well, let's try that a little bit. Instead of changing it 1/10 of an inch, now let's change it to 1/8 of an inch. Now that means it departs a little bit closer to the Sun every 18 miles. You know what's going to happen? We're going to get so close to the Earth. The Earth is going to get so close to the Sun twice a year that we're going to fry everything that we know of as life. And that's if you adjust the orbit of the Earth by a tiny fraction. Now, let me explain this to you. And when I say explain it to you, what I mean is I'm going to give you the fact and let you deal with it yourself, because I'm not sure I even understand it. But there are 4 forces at work right now, and they're basically the only 4 forces in the physical world. There's the strong atomic force, the weak atomic force, the electromagnetic force, and the force of gravity. And those are basically the 4 forces. From what I understand, the force of gravity and the electromagnetic force are so closely connected. Now stick with me. You know what a 0.1, a decimal and 1 means? 1/10. 0.01 is how much? 100. That means you take something, you divide it into 100, and you got 1 piece. 0.001 is how much? 1,000th. That means you take something, you cut it into 1,000 pieces, you get 1,000 of them. 1 out of the 1,000. 0.0001, 1/10,000. You cut something into 10,000 pieces, you got 1. If you were to adjust either the electromagnetic force or the force of gravity by 0.0000000 out to 40 decimal places. 40! If you changed it by that tiny of a fraction, the universe as we know it right now would not exist. Life as we know it could not and would not exist. And that's just one tiny